upstairs to the big kids table.
Good morning, everyone. We'll call the governance committee meeting to order. The first order on our agenda is the acceptance of July 21st, 2021 governance committee meeting minutes. Those were sent out by Carrie. Any additions, deletions, revisions were sent back to her. So I will move to accept those for the record. Our next item on the agenda is public comment. If there's anyone who would like to address the governance committee meeting, they can speak. They have 5 minutes to address the meeting. If they stand, state their name and their address. Seeing none, I'll close that section of the meeting. And we'll move on to our first item on the agenda. It's a review, discussion, recommendation to authorize the extension of the lease agreement by and between the agency, Boscov's Department Store, the Binghamton Local Development Corporation, and the City of Binghamton dated as of May 1st, 2013, for an additional 1-year term commencing May 1st, 2021, and terminating April 30th, 2022, on the same terms as conditions as set forth therein, including the payment of rent in the amount of $135,061 during the extension term.
Yes, this request and this letter comes from Mayor David. For many years now, we've had this document in place on a year-to-year basis, which essentially our role is we authorize this pilot agreement, which sets up the lease terms between Boscov's and the City of Binghamton LDC. We received this, so this would go as Mayor mentioned, through April to the 30th of next year. Both parties were very interested in keeping this agreement in place. Boscov's is one of those rare downtown development or department stores. It does wish to remain downtown. So the authorization of this allows me to put this agreement in place.
Any questions? I think the interesting thing is that I don't think a lot of individuals in the community realize that the agency is the landlord of these properties. So that was kind of a structure that goes back to when Boscov's came into downtown Binghamton. But as you know, as Stacy noted, I think outside of New York City, I think Binghamton is the only city in the state that still has a department store based downtown. And I know for a fact out of Boscov's chain of 26 to 28 stores, there's only 2 in downtown, Binghamton and Wilkes-Barre. So it is an anomaly, but it does have, obviously, as we know, a significant impact on downtown Binghamton for a lot of reasons. I know that when the chamber is looking to attract potential conventions, that when the teams come to town and they look certainly at the hotel space, but when they're walking between the DoubleTree and the Holiday Inn and they see a major department store there, that's a major selling point for them to come into the city. If that block were empty, I think it would be much more difficult to sell downtown as a convention location. So there are a lot of dividends that that store provides, not only for the city, but I think for the entire region. So glad to see that that we've extended it for another year. I know there's intense negotiations going on about the future of the building and revitalizing the building and things along that nature. And I'm sure that's going to be fleshed out over the next several months. So, but I just think this is probably one of the more significant things we're doing this year. It's helping to keep out, Boscov's downtown for another year. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm moved.
Motion, Jim, is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is a review, discussion, recommendation to authorize the leaseback transaction to facilitate the financing of the acquisition, construction, rehabilitation, renovation and equipment of a portion of the Oakdale Mall located on Harry L. Drive, Reynolds Road, Johnson City, to be used as a mixed-use development project, including but not limited to retail, office and commercial space, and appointing Spark JC LLC, the company, as the agent of the agency for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, and equipping the project, and authorizing the extension and delivery of certain documents with respect thereto, including a payment in lieu of tax agreement, deviating from the agency's uniform tax exemption policy, a sales tax and use tax exemption benefit in an amount not to exceed $3,093,333, to provide a mortgage tax exemption in an amount not to exceed $933,234, and a real property tax exemption in an amount not to exceed $5,371,776.
Mayor, I would ask the governance committee and board members that are here to refer to the updated materials as of this morning. There's been some just final updates to this. We will post to the website. As noted, I think in the agenda, that went out last week, we got a TBD in the amount of the real property tax exemption. So I do want to, we'll discuss that point, but I'll also make a note that as this application was accepted, the total project costs were based on best projections at this time. So we recognize that should sales tax, mortgage tax, those numbers can shift. It's not uncommon with projects, especially in this right now with costs. But I just wanted to make a note of that, and as well that a number of conversations with potential tenants are ongoing. So just remain, I will not refer to anything by name, just to maintain the integrity of those conversations. But essentially what we have is a refresher. The Oakdale Commons is the proposal of the acquisition and renovation of the current, let's say current Oakdale Mall, to Spark JC LLC, who plans to purchase and renovate the facility for a multi-use live, work, wellness, and play type of facility. They are conversations with companies that include retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and technology. My last understanding is those conversations are going well, but continuing to progress. One of the things they are looking for is the stability of the pilot program. They have, based on our conversations at the last governance committee meeting, we did meet with the development team as part of JC. However, their council is here today. We now have a new pilot proposal that is 25 years rather than the 28. Reason for that is it runs potentially based on preliminary conversations, coterminous with what lease terms they're looking with a number of these retailers. As well, I've updated the project review form. So the only item that's changed in there is that property tax exemption number. It went from roughly 7.7 million to 5.37 million, bringing the total exemption down from, I think it was initially around 12 million down to $9.39 million in total exemptions. And action, just to remind you, the action today, by the governance is to recommend this to the full board for approval of that. Any questions?
Stacey, one of the things I think you sent out, but I wouldn't hurt to explain, is one of the items that we were involved in negotiation last week, or maybe Joe might want to. The term we put in there that the mall or substantial part of the mall is sold within 10 years, they have to come back to us for us to review. So I think that's something new. I think it's significant in a way. You might want to kind of get an overview.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. I mean, currently, as our policy states, 29, a few things that are worth noting as it relates to the project. We did modify our UTEP in 2019. We've always had a recapture benefit, your recapture clause on any benefit. That currently previously ran only 3 years. We did modify that to run through the life of the pilot. So that's one thing that I was talking about, potential clawbacks through the transference or through non-compliance. So that provision has essentially always been there. What's maybe interesting to know, and Joe, this is where the lawyer, I'll correct me if I'm wrong, is that in our UTAP, essentially, if the project remains compliant and the use remains the same, the transference is almost as a, I don't want to say as a, it's not the correct terminology.
I would say this. It's actually not in the UTEP itself, but it's in our documents that provides that the benefit can be transferred if they are compliant and if the new owner agrees to abide by all.
Right.
Essentially, it is a transfer as of the right, but there are some hoops that have to go through. But the new the language that's been addended to this pilot schedule is if all or substantially all of the project site is sold to an unaffiliated third party within 10 years, the IEA board must consent, which consent shall not be unreasonable.
So what that does is gives us the opportunity, to more, get a little bit more authority over the sale of a project that currently has a pilot. And just one of the things I think it's important to note too is that we were looking at, other possible terms to put into this that we've been talking about that we want to do going forward. And we're meeting next week about looking at our whole process and modifications we want to make to it. But we, and this was new, but we felt this was something legitimate we could get in with this negotiation. The bottom line is that we were in the middle of negotiations and the applicants came in with an understanding that these were our terms and our guidelines right now. It really wasn't fair to start making major modifications to our terms in the middle of an application process. We are meeting next Monday and going forward, I think there will be changes. But in the issue of fairness, I think we couldn't go too deep, but this was a change that we felt was fair and reasonable and legitimate, and we were able to incorporate that into the agreement. With that, if there's any questions for Joe or for Stacy, any comments? Okay, is there a motion? A second? Second, Jim. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Cheryl abstains. And motion is carried. Those are the only items we have on our agenda for the governance committee. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Brian. Is there a second? Second, Dan. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we're adjourned.